We in the building. We in the building. We in the building, bitch. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building. We in the building, bitch. We in the building. Finally, RZeroB and PTA have come back.
Wait. I'm sorry. No. Hold on a second. We got to have a conversation. Hyde. Before we get into anything, we need to have a conversation where you're hiding. What in the world? I don't want to curse yet. It don't matter. We're not monetized. I'm never going to be monetized. What in the world was that picture? Why would you post that picture and think that was a good thing to do? Don't do that ever again. That was terrible. Now we've got it out the way. Let's go ahead and do the thing. Sorry.
Have come back to Giants Talk, which means that finally RZeroB and PTA have come back to be G and
Man, fuck it, man. No, man. Fuck all
them
that.
birds.
Fuck
them
the
birds.
Eagles. I don't give a shit whose network
them.
this is, okay? I don't care. I don't care about none of you damn Eagles fans out there, okay? I told Philly Notion this earlier. I'm going to tell the rest of you sons of bitches now, okay? I hope you Eagles fans have the squirts until tomorrow morning. Every single last one of you. I hope you have the fucking squirts until about 7:19 in the morning. You assholes.
That's a long time.
Hey, I said what I said. The squirts. All night on the toilet. Legs in the air.
Anyway, camera's looking good, right? Camera's looking real nice.
You're looking fucking, yeah, you're looking crispy,
looking real good, you know? All right, so listen. This show is going to be an informative show, okay? Obviously, you know, we're not going to, dive too much into it. Obviously, Giants lost last weekend, okay? Season is over, okay? But now it's time to go ahead and get into the off-season stuff, okay?
The thing we've actually been waiting for. This is what we've actually
been waiting for.
This is what
we've been waiting for. Now,
like the season was cool, but this is what we've been
season was great, right? But this is where it matters, because this is now year one now of the rebuild. This is when it starts.
Ain't nothing free no more.
Okay,
nothing else is free.
Mock drafts, baby. Yeah, Sarge, 100%. And I know y'all like him on mock drafts. For all you haters out there, yeah, I traded every fucking pick we had, and I took a quarterback with every fucking pick I could possibly take. So I hope you guys appreciate it.
Asshole. Just an absolute asshole.
Listen, and let me address that really quick. I don't care about being the villain. I was a nice guy. Okay, I was a nice guy for a long time. But there was a person that's close to me that said I'm a good guy and I'm a bad guy. And I'm more of a bad guy than a good guy. And there's a villain inside. And
there's a
villain inside. And listen, the villain is here. I will be the villain now. See, year zero was good. Now it's time.
Now villain's here.
Now villain's here, and we're going to be real, okay? So I'm going to post mock drafts. I might draft players you don't like. I went ahead and posted today my pre-off season.
Hey, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you, Rob? No, wait a minute. Why, Rob? Why?
Because I wanted to.
I wanted to. Bro. I mean, I guess ScoMo did the same thing and said 10 wins. So, oh man, we're doing this already.
Anyway.
Jeez, it's too early for this. We don't even know what the rosters are going to look like, y'all. Like, let's not worry about the opponents because we don't know what the rosters are going to look like. We don't know.
Listen, that's why I called it in bold and in caps. My pre-off season schedule prediction. Okay, so for any of you guys that responded to that, quoted to that, oh Rob, how could you, Rob, and how? But the off season hasn't started, Rob. Yeah, I know the off season hasn't started. That's why it's in my title. Do you read? Yes,
God
I know.
Damn. I'm sorry. Listen, Giants Nation, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm responsible for this monster. Okay, I created this monster.
You did.
I'm so sorry.
You did.
I'm. You
and Twitter Spaces has gone Luku, Coco.
Yeah.
Okay, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Anyway, so I'm going to continue to do that. If you don't like it, then move on. But if you are going to respond and you're either A, going to say something stupid, B, you're going to be like absolutely just a straight dick, okay? Or C, you absolutely have no fucking clue on what you're talking about. Guess what? I'm going to respond. And if you don't like my response or you don't want to hear my response, then don't respond to me. Period. Anyway, we're going to move on. So in this show, we are going to have Tim from Big Blue Entertainment is going to come on the show. Also, you guys might know him on Twitter. Very, very knowledgeable. I was up till 2 a.m. talking with this gentleman in a non-recorded space last night. He's called the Cap Guru. Okay. We're going to have them come on and we are going to be talking about the hot topic, y'all. Okay. Because somehow people think that Joe Shane has got a money tree growing out his ass. Okay.
Oh God.
God. And then at that, we're going to sign Daniel to a 2 or 3 year deal where we can get out of it after year 1 or year 2. And we're gonna tag Saquon and we're gonna go and we're gonna sign these draft picks and we're gonna in the middle of the season, people are gonna be like, man, this team, they're looking to trade this player. Oh, this team, why don't we go after this guy? Oh, he's a free agent. We should sign him, and we're not gonna have the money to do it. So now, for anybody, no, John, don't do it, John. I bought you lunch. I got you lunch this week, so don't you fucking do it. We are going to go ahead and we're going to talk cap. So anybody that has questions or you are unaware and you're trying to figure out, man, jolly old B, can we sign Daniel Jones and keep Saquon Barkley and better this roster and be competitive with the Eagles and the Cowboys? You're gonna find out how we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do.
Hey yo, Rob, do me a favor, man. Show me on the logo where they touched you. Show me on the logo where they touched you. How the fuck did we get here, right? Because I remember I was here. Okay, I was here. I remember. You was all up in arms about not taking Daniel Jones's 5th-year option, which is paying way more.
I said I wanted to take his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
You said you did.
How do we get from wanting to keep Daniel Jones here for another year to get ready to sign Daniel Jones to a 7-year contract?
Time out. So
how do we get here?
So here's my stance. I am okay with Daniel Jones coming back, but I am not okay with him making $30 million.
He was going to make 32 on the fucking.
Listen, here's what changed, and I'll tell you why, and I'll briefly give my explanation. Watching that game against Philadelphia clearly showed me, I don't know about any of you guys, but clearly showed me where we are at and how far away we are as a roster compared to the Cowboys and compared to the Eagles. Now, we didn't play the Cowboys in the playoffs, but let me explain something to you guys. The only reason why the Cowboys were in that game against San Francisco because their offense sucked majorly. majorly was because of their defense. Was the only reason why that was a 7-point game. For God's sakes, their offense put Zeke at center and hiked the football. Okay? Like, and Kellen Moore is, or Kellen Clemens, whatever the fuck his name is still in Carolina. He didn't leave. He's still in Carolina on a second interview. Maybe because they wanted him to break down that play and the thought process behind that play. Why did you put Zeke at center? Maybe they're going to put Dante Foreman at center in Carolina and hike it to Sam Darnold and say, yo, chuck it up to DJ Moore like PJ Walker did against Atlanta. We are so far off as a roster that if we commit $30 million or more to this quarterback if they're going to do it, personally, it's you do it in a way where he gets all of his guaranteed, you don't tag him, but he gets all of his guaranteed money up front. That way, next year, you walk away. It would be like 3 years, $66 million, $25 million guaranteed. He gets $25 million next year. My buddy Sal said this last night. It's kind of like a Blake Bortles contract. He gets $25 million next year guaranteed. You still have a little bit of flexibility to where you can make some offseason acquisitions with free agency. And if it don't work, bye-bye. See you later, alligator. You go ahead and you walk. But watching that game just proved to me that we are not even in the same weight class. Do I still hate the Eagles? Fuck yeah. Would I still want to beat them? Hell yeah.
Wait a minute. Why did it take that game to show that we weren't in? I mean, because like here's the thing, right?
Max, if you think that DJ has to be here for the next 2 seasons, I really need you to put down the vape. Because whatever is in it is I really need you to put it down. Because he can't. He can't. Unless listen, if DJ takes a major step, he has earned the right to come back here next year. He has earned that right, but at the right price. If they are going to go ahead and give him that cash, then I'm just saying, be prepared. If he gets $30 million next year, be prepared that we are walking out next season with the same team plus 9 rookies. That's it, or 11 rookies, excuse me, because we have two compensatory picks or whatever. So we have 11.
Taco! I can't yell, but Taco 2 Kids is in the building. What's up, Taco?
Yo, Taco, what up?
I ain't seen Taco 2 Kids in a minute. I miss you, Taco. I'm glad to see you, brother. You just put that out there, man. I ain't seen you ever.
We are going to be walking out there with the same roster that we have, minus O'Shane Zimenez, because I don't think we're bringing him back, minus some of these other guys, okay, and 9 rookies. It's going to be the same team. Why? Because Daniel Jones got paid. Now, if he gets a deal where he's making $25 million or less, it gives them flexibility to where they can make some off-season acquisitions, like a middle linebacker like TJ Edwards from Philadelphia, if they can get their hands on him, unless he comes back. Because right now, the Philadelphia Eagles only have $4.6 million in available cap space. They're in not a very good position right now.
Okay, here's what I'm going to have to do. This is what I'm going to have to do for this fucking episode, y'all. I'm going to have to cheat, right? Because I don't know shit about the cap, all right? Like, I don't know a damn thing about this cap, all right? Just so y'all know. I don't know how the cap works. I don't understand how they be finagling the contracts, and I don't know. Okay, I don't understand the cap no more. I thought I did. I fucking don't. All right, like I don't know how the Eagles have the best team in football and all these fucking good ass players, and they had no cap space. I don't know how they did that. So I don't understand how this shit works. Now I'm gonna have to cheat and pull this stuff up. Now, here's my question, because I know you know the answer to this, Rob. What do the Giants have in terms of free cap going into this offseason?
So right now, the New York Giants have $54 million in cap space. That is what they
Okay.
have. Okay. Now, the two obvious transaction, or let's do one. The one obvious transaction is going to be Kenny Galladay. Now, Kenny Galladay is more than likely going to be a post June 1st cut, which means we are going to pay him $4.5 million, I think, but we are going to get like 4.5 or 4.6 million back, but that will be after June 1st. Now, what they could do is they could do what the Saints did with Michael Thomas, which is basically saying, hey, we're going to restructure you. We're going to cut you before June 1st. So it would be at the time when free agency is going to start. So he would take a small pay cut, but he would become a free agent at the time that free agency starts. So he has a jump start on potentially landing and signing with another team. That will, at that point, give us the $14 million at that point that we would have gotten in June after free agency was over. We would get that money at the time that free agency is starting. So that brings us up to $68 million.
Cap Guru
my
is in
man.
the building.
What's up, gentlemen?
How's it
All
going,
right.
sir?
Hey, I'm glad you're here because I don't understand the cap. I don't know how it works anymore. None of it makes sense to me. All right. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know how these teams are finagling this money. So hopefully you can make some sense of this.
Dude, I like to pretend I know, so let's go about it that way.
Oh, okay, cool.
Listen, if you guys are not following Cap Guru on Twitter, be sure to go. If you have any cap questions, I was up till 2 a.m. talking with this guy last night. That's why he's got a Red Bull, and that's why he's drinking it, because he's tired. He was up all night last night talking about the cap. But we ran through a lot of different stuff. So questions, mainly we're going to let these guys kind of talk. We'll ask some questions, and they'll answer it. And these will be basic questions like what Pest is saying, like, hey, how much cap do we have? What can we do? What moves can we make? You know, this, that, and the third. Where I know about the basic cap, what Big Blue Entertainment from Tim from Big Blue, who will be here, and what Cap know is the signing bonuses, the roster bonuses. They know a little bit more about that and how that would work, things like that, what you can do, how you can maneuver that. If you cut a player, does that still count against the cap? Things like that. So we'll dive right in. And I'll let you take over from this point in explaining it. Basically, what Pest asked me was, how much money do we have? Which I said it was 54 prior to Kenny Galladay. And that if we do the restructure with Kenny to cut him in March prior to free agency starting, we would get that $14 million. We'd give him $4 million and change. And he would take a small pay cut, but he would be a free agent at the start of free agency. We would get that $14 million. So at the start of free agency, we would, prior to extending Daniel or tagging Saquon or anything like that, we'd have that $68 million. So if you want to take over from there, what would be the breakdown from that point?
Okay, so we gotta go back a couple steps. All right. So the tagging a player occurs before the league year starts. Okay. So the Giants have to make the decision to tag whoever they're going to tag. If they're going to tag somebody, they have to make it before March 16th. So that has to happen on by March 7th. Okay. So before free agency starts, before they do any of that, they have to make that decision. All right. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then when the league year starts, that's when the clock starts on all this shit, and the cap gets readjusted, and the space, and they have to be cap compliant by then, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if they decide to tag Daniel, right, or Saquon or whoever it is, they have to, whatever else is going on, they just have to be under the cap by the start of the league year. That's it. Doesn't make a difference. Now, if they cut Kenny, if they cut him as a pre-June 1 cut, it's $6.5 million that they get back towards the cap. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And all his dead money stays in this year. If they cut him, if they do a post-June 1 designation, he gets cut early, and the dead money gets split up between this year and next year, and they save $13 million. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Either way, at the end of the day, when you're cutting a player, you're looking at, am I saving money relative to the dead cap hit, right? Or am I, like the Eagles did with Carson Wentz, going to be a net positive, even though I'm going to suck for a year or two because I had to pay him $47 million not to be on my team, right? So the decision comes down to, how are you going to do it? Do you want to necessarily deal with dead money again in 2024 for Kenny? Do you want to have his contract on the books again or not? As far as his contract, the only part of it that he could really forgive would be the $4.5 million in guaranteed salary that he's owed. But we have no leverage to say, hey, void it, because let's face it, nobody's going to sign him for $4.5 million, right?
And here comes Tim.
I got the link, but I got it from somebody else, and I wasn't looking for the link from somebody else. Not gonna fucking throw it away.
My bad, Tim.
He was like, "Who in the?"
Yeah,
bad,
what's going on, Tim?
My bad.
What's going on, guys? Not much. Just
okay. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Guru. Continue what you were saying.
Yeah. So Tim, what we were talking about was basically just talking about the deadlines for when the tags have to be issued, right? Which this year is March 7th. New league year, when the clock starts, all that stuff, and talking about Kenny and his contract situation. Pre-June 1 cut, it's $6.5 million in savings. Post-June 1 cut, it's whether they actually cut him after June 1 or they do a June 1 designation. That's going to be $13 million in savings for this year, right?
Right. Y'all know that you have two post-June 1st designations that you can use before June 1st.
Right. But you don't get the money until
they didn't use last. Yeah, I know, but they didn't use last year, which they should have. But we're not going to get into that.
Yeah. So when you do that post June 1st, you're getting ready to say it, Guru. When you do that post June 1st, you don't actually even have that money until then, correct? Even if you like, if they designated right now, hypothetically, they still can't touch that money until June 1st. So what's the benefit of doing that?
Well, when you're in a better
over just cutting them right now,
probably I would assume, right?
I mean, here's the thing: if you need the money to sign somebody, you do it, right? You split the money, you split you split your dead money over 2 years, right? So you get a little bit more savings on the front side, and you pass a little bit more money into next year's cap, right? Now, do you necessarily want to do that, or do you want to rip the Band-Aid off and just deal with it and take your medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question, boils down to, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts. It's not just Kenny. There's Leo's contract as well. That's a freaking beast, right? Then you've got a Dory who could be extended. We talked about that a little bit last night. Who could be extended at 13 to $15 million on average, per year, and have that saved. Potentially save the team $10 million or so this year. Right. So it just depends on how they layer it and how they structure it. The complexity, though, comes into, especially with, like, let's say Leo's deal, where you already have void money next year, right? You've got $6 billion next year. Let's say you want to extend them, right? You got to include those
void money in 2024.
Yeah, you've got $6 million of void money in 2024.
You have 32 in dead. You have 32 right now in 2023.
Right, of which 18 million of that 32 is straight salary, so it's not guaranteed. Right. Now the thing is,
well, actually, we don't know if it's not guaranteed because we don't know the complete renegotiation of his contract. That's one of the things that they don't tell you, because I worked in the league. One of the things they do not tell you, especially for like these websites and things, is they don't tell you what was. They don't tell you the workout bonuses. They don't tell you some of the incentive bonuses. Most people forget that when you're working with, especially with the cap numbers, your incentive bonuses are usually already built in to the cap number, even without you achieving those, even without those achieving, because they have to go in reference to the way the cap space is set up in the NFL.
Correct.
We got to throw this question from Chris up here.
Likely or not likely to be earned, right? So
yeah. Go ahead, Pest.
They always go by that theory that likely it will be earned, even though hopefully most general managers hope it doesn't get earned, because then they can use that as rollover money.
Right. Exactly.
I saw Chris ask this question, and I'm going to put this up here so you guys can see it. What's the benefit of doing the pre or post June 1st cut versus a trade, or is there no difference? Is what he's asking.
So pre-June 1 cut just basically means that you have all your dead money in this year, right? And next year you're not dealing with it. You're completely free of it, right? The post-June 1 cut just basically gives you a little bit more freedom this year as opposed to a pre-June 1 cut. Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing anything. Now a trade will typically give you the same cap benefit as a post-June 1 cut in most instances, depending on the wording of the contract and the structure.
Depending on the wording of the contract, because also it depends on it depends on the bonus money. It also depends on workout bonuses. It also depends on roster bonuses. It will depend, because a lot of times what will happen is you're not. Sometimes you're better off just cutting somebody and just get them, because everyone thinks we'll just trade them. We'll trade them. It's not like baseball where you trade somebody and that it's completely off your books. It's gone. It's wiped out. And the other team either can, like in the NFL, like in Major League Baseball, an NFL team can help absorb some of the salary if they're sending someone somewhere else to make the trade more palatable in reference to cap space. But a lot of times when it's easy, you could do, it really depends. Sometimes there's like zero savings if you do, a trade compared to a post or a pre-June 1st cut. It really just depends on the contract itself, the language that is entered into the contract by the agent, and really just how badly someone wants to get. Sometimes you just want to get rid of something. Everyone knows. Sometimes you just want to get rid of somebody just to get rid of them. It's not about saving money. It's just about getting someone off the team.
Gotta go. Okay, so go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Like an example, earlier this year, when everybody was talking about potentially trying to find out a way to trade Kenny, right? Like there's no way to trade him. The only way that they might have been able to trade him is to eat some of his contract, right? And renegotiate it to a point, flip it into basically bonus, send him to somebody else where their cap hit for him might have only been like $10 million, right? And therefore they may have been willing to take the risk on him. The Giants would have been out of the dead cap with that, right? And still saved money relative to last year and this year, and had a little bit more space for the season. But of course, trying to move Kenny was probably something that they weren't able to do, even if they ate $10 million. So
let me ask this question, and Tim, I'm gonna, and again, guys, if you guys don't know Tim from Big Blue Entertainment, Twitter, YouTube, make sure you check him out. Cap Guru on Twitter, great guys here. Cap questions. Hey, does this make sense? Anything, they will respond to you. They're great people, and please reach out to them and follow them and show them some love. Tim, I want to ask you, obviously, the
nicest thing anyone's ever said about me on Twitter.
Quick funny story. Tim actually joined one of my spaces, and this was after we had the big BGN thing where we were playing the Eagles the first time. And when Tim came in and he was talking, and I was like, man, this guy's voice fucking sounds familiar. Like, what the fuck? And I was like, yo, Tim, were you in fucking BGN the other night? He's like, yeah, that was me. I was like, oh fuck, like I didn't know that was you. Like it was like fuck. I was like, hey,
he's part of the family. Yeah, he's part of the family. Yeah. He got keys to this joint. I mean,
he's got keys. He's got the keys. He's got keys. He's the godfather. He's the godfather of it all. He's the godfather of it all. So Tim, the biggest topic right now this offseason, really been the biggest topic the last 4 years, is Daniel Jones. And there's a lot of people right now that are pleased with Daniel Jones's production, and he definitely did perform well. Tim alluded to in a little tweet back and forth that he performs well in domes, not outside, but that's nor here nor there. Right, Tim? That's nor here nor there. But Either way, he performed well enough to the point where there is a good majority of the fan base that would like him back, but also to the point where he put the Giants in a little bit of a pickle. 25th pick, a little bit hard to move up. And, now they got to kind of play into it. So what is a way? Is there a way? How would that way look like to bringing back Daniel? Would you bring back Daniel? And if you do, what can you do with it to the point where it does not cripple the Giants to the point where they could make off-season moves? And I keep hearing like the Alex Smith's like way that the Kansas City Chiefs or the 49ers, the way they did it, where they built up the roster, they had Jimmy, they had Alex, and they did all this. Is that possible for the Giants to do that? And if it is, what would that look like?
I mean, anything's possible. I mean, I could get better looking, but like I said, anything's possible. But I mean, if you look at it from a perspective of the organization, you're sitting around 56 million. You probably can create another 10, if not a little bit more. I keep seeing people banding about certain contracts and certain values, and they all have Daniel Jones taking like no money in year one, and then pushing out all the other, dollars into year 2 and 3, then having voidable years and in 3 and like year 4. Everyone always seems to forget certain things, such as bonus money. Most bonus money is paid up front. I mean, it's given to the player up front because of the fact that no players are going to, I mean, if you're an NFL player, your career's short enough as it is. Are you going to not want to take bonus money? Are you not going to want to? And
bonus money hits the cap immediately
because it's paid to the player right away. And a lot of times,
hold on a second. Let's rephrase that. Bonus money, you can accrue it. You can account for it over 5 years
on how the contract value is. But most teams do not want to. Most teams give the bonus money up front because they don't want to have it spread out over the contract, because of the fact that they're also going to have the salary number. It also dictated. And I could tell you strictly in Tampa back in 2003, there was a player that they got rid of. And they basically brought him in, and they gave him all and this is not in really the infancy of the cap space, but this is, in the beginning, and they didn't understand when they did it, which is why they got in trouble in 2003 after winning the Super Bowl, was the fact that they gave this gentleman the bonus money. It didn't work out, and they decided they needed to move on. But the problem was it was going to put them in cap purgatory the next year, which it did, which is why they had 2 losing seasons in a row. I always tell people, just because I came to Tampa after they won a Super Bowl, it was not my fault that I helped cause 2, John Gruden some of his worst seasons before, he went over to Las Vegas. But the problem is with Daniel Jones is, if you look at, everyone has a wish list, and the wish list is Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. They want to bring back Julian Love. You still have Darius Slayton. They want to go sign they want to sign Hopkins. They want to bring in a linebacker. They want to do this. They have to, you have to have your cap hold for your, your draft choices. The money sometimes just doesn't equal up. And I find it interesting right now that if you go on like ESPN and certain places, when they talk about Daniel Jones now, they talk about how it fits in economically. They're not because of the fact that a lot of people are saying, give him $45 million. Give him $40 million, but economically it doesn't fit with what you need to do.
Exactly.
That's why they always say if you take a quarterback in the top 10, you need to win within the first 4 years, because if you don't, you're going to be in cap purgatory.
Question really quick, Tim. So when we're watching free agency frenzy, right, and we see on the screen, just for me as a fan, and I'm sure everybody else would like to know this too, when you see Saquon Barkley signs 4-year, $60 million guaranteed, $40 million or $60 million, $40 million guaranteed, that guaranteed money is not the bonus money, the signing bonus money.
Correct.
So the signing bonus money, they never bring that up when they're announcing it on ESPN, NFL Network. That is strictly in your contract at that point.
They do talk about it.
They do mention it. Not to jump right, but they do mention it. But I think it's more the people that are on Twitter. It's more the people that are fans that don't understand. It's like I always talk about the rule of 51. And people think I'm crazy about talking about.
God, yeah, no,
really
that blows people's minds.
It blows people's minds, but like I said, if you're on ESPN, you're on a sports show, you know what that is.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is, but not everyone's a cap guru.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody.
And the other thing is dead money. Like, I think the most misunderstood and misquoted topic is dead money. Like, people,
I talk about that all the time.
It's like, are you saving money? Yes or no? Like, if you're going to cut a player, are you saving money? Yes or no? That's the only thing that matters, right?
Yep.
Relative to the cap. Are you going to save money? Yes or no? What's the impact? And that's it. Forget how much dead money there is. You know, if you're a GM, you have to be comfortable operating with dead money because you've already paid it out. So you've got to deal with your shit. Like, you know, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, at the end of the day, that's how that works. I mean, like, we were talking about this yesterday. You know, you take Tim. This is the rule of thumb that I've always kind of followed. You know, with cap planning. We're talking about, let's say the team has $55 million in gross space, right? The effective space that they have to work with, once you account for, give or take $10 million to operate in the season, and we're talking about cap space allocation, not the actual contracts and cash spending and all that stuff. And you take $10 million for your rookie class in cap space, give or take, again, you know, ballpark. And, you know, with just this year, the Giants were over $4 million, well over $4 million for the practice squad. You know, again, buffer it $5 million to give you a little bit of wiggle room. So you got about $25 million you got to take out of that. So from your 55, you come down to $30 million in effective space to use, right? Tag Jones, that's a hard hit. That's it.
God. Oh my
You're
God.
done.
Oh no. Oh no. The light bulb just went off. Oh no.
Now let's look at it like this. You have
I've only been talking about this now for 4 months.
Yeah, no, I've been talking about this for like since last year because I already saw this coming down the pipe, right?
Oh, I know.
So
I didn't even think about all that.
I told people a year ago we were going to be in cap purgatory in 2022 and 2023. They're like, no, we're going to be fine. Don't worry, we're all going to be fine.
So let's look at it like this. Let's say the cap space, let's say the league salary cap is $215 million. All right, as an example, and I'm using this specific number for a reason.
Only Smee could not post.
$10 million.
Artem, what's going on?
$10 million for you're budgeting $10 million for the season, $5 million for your practice squad. You've now got $200 million to sign 53 guys, right? Okay. You take 5 guys. Let's say they average $20 million a pop, right, on your cap space. That's $100 million off your books. That's half of your cap space is tied up in 5 guys, and you've now got to sign 48 to $100 million. Now, guess what? Those are your top 5 guys. Tremaine Edmonds that people want to bring in. Guess what? He's going to be about a $20 million guy. T gets signed next year to $20 million, right? You're
talking about like T Higgins. You're talking about?
Yeah. Andrew Thomas, 20 million, 25, right? Dex, probably 15 to 20, easy, right? Oh, yeah. And DJ, how much is that? 30, 40 that people want to throw at him? Are you kidding me? And you haven't even started signing the other guys. Oh, yeah. Now I want Julian Love back at $5 million. I want to keep Xavier McKinney at 10. I got Graham Gano at 5. Oh yeah, that's another 25. And
Tim's just sitting there, be like, "Hello, I've been saying hello. Have you guys not been listening?"
I've got 8 guys for
how many arguments I've gotten into with the cap space. I always tell people, I said, I don't. The biggest thing is I always tell people I don't make up the math.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if people are like, just kick it down the road. Okay, well, I've got 5 guys, right? I've got 5 guys that, let's say I have 5-year contracts on these guys, and I'm kicking all this money down the road. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, 1 year, I'm going to have all this cap space taken up. I'm going to have $200 million in cap space taken up by 5 guys because I pushed it all down the road to sign everybody else, right?
Mhm.
Or if I start compressing it, messing with it, I've then got other guys coming in that I've got to sign too. And
Which
I've
is
got
kind of
to,
why we were in the situation we were with Kenny, because we didn't have money when Kenny was brought in. So Gettleman backloaded the contract when we would have a little bit more cap space, obviously, because they looked that far. And he was minimal when we got him. And now he's paying this. I want to ask this question to both of you, because I'm seeing this logic, and then I want to get back to the DJ contract. We got 38 players that are on contract next year. And I think you want to get up to like what? You want to get up to like 90 before like preseason, and then you start cutting players down and shit like that. Now, what I keep saying is obviously you want to have a 53-man roster. So you want to have somewhere around 53 guys, maybe 49, 50 guys, 51 guys or whatever. You have a couple of open slots. And I think you typically have like what, 10 to 12 guys on the practice squad, or 13 on the practice squad?
up to 16.
16. Okay, 16 on the practice squad. Now, I'm hearing this. We have 11 picks. We have 38 guys on contract. That's 49 people.
But
So
those 11 guys, don't all make the roster.
Can you for any of those people that, because I've been seeing that, Tim, so much today. We got 11 picks. That's 49. We're good. We're great. So can you explain to those people how that sounds so stupid to say, please?
Well, it's actually easy because of the fact that Cap Guru said it best. Not everyone makes the team. You wouldn't go out and sign all these other guys, all these free agents, all these undrafted rookies, if all 11 guys were going to make the team, because that's just not how the NFL works. I mean, if we take a look at some of the guys we picked up that never played for the Giants or had a cup of coffee and then moved on. I mean, you have a war of attrition on a roster, which is why you need to have 90 men on this roster. This is why you start off with that large number. And now they changed it from back in the day, because back in the day, the cuts were more swift. But now they've changed a little bit where you don't cut as many guys because of injuries and everything else. But there's no way to gauge. And I always talk about the fact that when I played in college, everyone, I thought I was the greatest player ever. And I almost got cut twice, during summer practices. And I knew I probably wasn't that good, but my theory was this, that there's only a certain amount of people that are out for summer practice, so I'm going to make the team.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works, because you have 72 scholarship guys coming back as well, and when they come back into the fold, you're pushed out. Plus, people have to worry about, you have to look into trades, you have to look into injuries. There are so many factors. I once watched in a day in Tampa. I watched 3 players go down at the same position at the 9 a.m. practice, and they were not on the roster during opening day. They had to go and find people to bring in. So you never know what's going to happen. And I love that, because that's everyone. And like I said, I don't make up the math.
I wish these guys knew about the old taxi squads from back in the day.
I was good. No one ever knows what the hell they're talking
about. Now, Tim, what you were talking about is, and for any of people that don't know, because you have turnover, right? So you're bringing guys in your So say the Giants sign you to the 90-man roster, and you get a contract of $900,000, and you don't make the roster, they still owe you that $900,000, correct? Or what of that do they get back? Can you explain that?
It depends, because if you are a draft pick, there's certain back in the day there was really no levels, but now they've leveled it out because of what happened with what's his name, Bradford, the quarterback, when he came in and took all that obscene amount of money and really did nothing. They now have it. If you're a certain draft choice, you have a certain level of guaranteed money that you are going to get with that contract. As you get down to lower levels, the less money you have guaranteed. So you may only have $30,000 of your contract that's guaranteed. And a lot of times what happens is with these free agents that come in, they'll get a roster bonus money, but they don't have a guaranteed contract until after the rule of 51, is off effect, which is at the last day of training camp. I mean, last day of training camp, preseason game, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
When when camp breaks, that's when the rule of 51 changes and it moves
So
over to the top.
I was getting ready to say, Max had a question about 51. So he said, correct me if I'm wrong, but cap space is only accounted for the top 51. Is that what you're talking about right there? So I want to make sure. So his question is answered.
The rule of 51 for the league year is basically they've changed the rules with the CBA recently as well. It is the top 51 contracts count against your cap space. It's just
from March 16th to the start of the football season. Does that make sense?
Right. Once the last game, once camp breaks, the rule of 51 is no longer in effect, and then you have to have the other 2 contracts added on. And at that point in time, you are supposed to be under
your
the cap.
practice squad and the practice squad. Yep.
Right.
That's why I was saying you got to allocate for the practice squad ahead of time before that, so you know what your budget is. So going back to the post June 1 cuts, right? Let's say I want to use all $55 million in space right now, right? For whatever I want to do. I want to hire a bunch of hookers, whatever, this, that, the other. No big deal, right? I can use all that money right now. I can go out and have a big party in Vegas, whatever, it doesn't matter. If I now cut Kenny Golladay as a post June 1 cut, I get my budget. I get $13 million back in my budget that I can use to sign my draft class, right? Let's say I now renegotiate. It's taking me a while to renegotiate my contract with Adoree, my extension, whatever. I now get $10 million from that. Well, guess what? I've now got my full budget for the offseason. You see what I mean? Plus the rookie class and all that stuff.
Well, I'll tell you right now that most general managers are smart enough to understand that they've already allocated their money, and they exactly. Basically when they come into the season, they're smart enough to understand the fact. What the problem Shane ran into was people seem to forget you are paid a certain amount of money when you're on the practice squad. Exactly. And that practice, I mean, I believe that I can't remember if the top total is $18,000 a week. It's like $6,000. I can't remember the top total, but you are paid.
And then you have the guys that are like the vets, the 6+ year vets that are allowed.
But exactly that what I was going to say. But once you're removed off the practice squad, you are now getting unless you have some type of contract, you are getting your veteran minimum contract, which will for one game, which will fluctuate between your number of years of service in the league. Now, the problem is you have that cap space in reference to making those changes. And what happened to Joe was, and I always talk about it because I always use the word operational cap space. He didn't have enough operational cap space to keep moving guys back and forth to the practice squad because of the fact that because of the cap situation we were in, which is why we had to go into Leonard Williams and give him that voidable year, that dead year in 2024, so he could have enough. You go back to 2022 when we can only field 51 guys because of the fact that we did not have the cap space to field a full roster. And
when you're saying operational cap space, that's when people are saying you want to have at least $10 million of operational money available to make in-season moves. Somebody gets injured. Maybe
we went into
acquire
this
somebody.
5 as an example.
Yeah.
Five.
Now
rule of thumb is
5
to 10.
Damn. Now here's my question. So, and this is more when I asked that before, Tim, as far as like the 90-man roster. My main question was for the people that said, all right, we're drafting 11 players. We have 38. That's 49. You got to get up to 90 players. Now, let's just use it for that rule of thumb, right? So you got 49. We'll just call it 50 for the roundabout number. So you want to go ahead and you want to add 40 players. Now, a good portion of that is going to be after the last day of the draft, undrafted free agents. You're bringing them in, you're signing them, you're doing all this stuff.
And we also just signed, I think, 11 to future contracts.
Contracts, right. So how does that work? So say you are an undrafted free agent after the last day of the draft and you're added to the roster and then you're cut, or during the fact of going into preseason or OTAs, you are signed to a contract and you're there and you're working out. And then a week or 2 weeks later, you are cut. Does that all come off the books and it's a wash at that point? Or do the Giants still owe those players money as like a severance for the time that they were there?
It again, depends on the contract. A lot of times that free agent contracts, especially ones that are college free agents, they may give you a small bonus, but there's usually not any guaranteed money. The money that usually isn't guaranteed until you make. Well, it's not even guaranteed then, but you don't count against the cap unless you make the roster.
I always 53-man roster is when you
I always tell the story that back when, in Tampa they had so many guys at one point, and they used to stay at the Celebration Hotel because Celebration was part of Worldwide Disney Sports Complex was right there, so they used to stay at the hotel then practice down at Disney. And you always had all these guys that are coming in. And one of the things that I had the inevitable task of doing was when they brought guys, some guys would be in for a week, some guys would be in for 3 days. So, part of my job was, to make sure that people left, when it was time for them to go. And I would help them, with their departures. And you feel bad for these guys because some of these guys come in with the expectation that they are going to make the roster right away, that they're going to somehow, do something in preseason, and they're counting on, back then it was like 375,000, if even less than that, for a year. They were counting on that money, but then they figured out, through their agent that, no, you're not getting that money, unless you make the roster. And then when they don't make the roster, it's almost like, or they get cut, even before cut down day. It's like it's a crush. I know people watch it on whatever the TV show is, the what they do behind the NFL with the training camps. But I always say that there is the studio version of people getting cut, and then there's the actual way of people getting cut. Because in the old days, they used to always say, hey, the coach wants to see you bring your playbook, which usually meant that you were gone. And they always waited. They used to be referred to as the Turk. And the Turk, you would hear hear the shoes clicking down the hallway, knocking on doors, which means you were a goner. So, but now it's a little bit different. But it really depends contractually how their agent has set it up with the team in reference to what they receive or what they do not receive, if there's any roster bonuses or anything else. So, like I said, it can be open ended because you may get into a bidding war with a college undrafted free agent that you want that two other teams. So you may give him $30,000. You may give him X amount. It really just depends on how bad you really want a player or how bad you think a player is going to make the team.
Like, for instance, there was if you sign a free agent, let's say for camp, right? And you give them, let's say, a 1-year deal, $1 million signing bonus, 1 year league minimum, right? Let's say that league minimum is $1 million. You cut them before the season's over. That $1 million signing bonus hits you as dead money that year. You see what I mean? Okay.
But there's not too many college free agents that are getting $1 million signing bonus.
Oh no, I'm not. I mean, it could be a veteran, right? Like,
veteran.
Who was the linebacker that Gettleman signed for? Like Gettleman did that exact thing with the linebacker the year before last, where he gave him like a $2 million deal. And there was $1 million signing bonus and $1 million in base or something like that, and he cut him before the season started. The other thing to understand with this is that once a guy is on the roster, part of the complication this year was once a guy's on the roster at the start of the football season, their contract is guaranteed. Okay, so if you cut them, they still count against the cap. You see what I mean? So you got like when they had guys like David Sills and stuff like that, there's no cap relief to cutting them. You see what I mean? Unless somebody claims them on waivers. If somebody claims them on waivers at that point, then they take that portion of the contract that's left and they absorb that on their cap. If you raise somebody from the practice squad, which is what Tim was talking about earlier, their contracts are paid on on a per game basis. Right. Okay. So if they're eligible, let's say for this argument's sake, let's say it's a $1.7 million league minimum contract, which would be $100,000 a game. If they're elevated for that game, their cap hit is a difference between what their practice squad contract is, their net cap hit, the net actual impact to cap is going to be the difference between their practice squad contract and that $100,000 for that game. That's going to be the increase in the reduction in the cap space. So it is $100,000 hit, but if they would have made say $50,000 to be in the practice squad, it's only a net increase of $50,000, but it's still taking away from your cap space. When you only have like $5 million like we did at the start of the season, it kills you.
So I got a question. So somebody in a feed that we were talking about this with Daniel Jones, And for me, the only way that I saw that this would work if they were bringing it back was to give him a long-term contract and spread the money out so that, because people are talking 2-year deal, 3-year deal. Well, when you do that, you're putting more money strain on your cap in a shorter time. And after watching that game, you were there, Tim, you were there. After watching that game,
Trying to forget that
roster, can't forget it. After watching that game and seeing the difference in the rosters, not just the play, but just the difference in the rosters, just showed me, I can't speak for anybody else, but just showed me how far off we are from truly competing in this division, and that every bit of money that we have is extremely valuable to getting this roster built up at key points, like at key positions. So going over through my feed, going back and forth, 2-year, 3-year, I had somebody, and I'm not going to mention the name, but I had somebody that posted out a contract. And this is what they said: $35 million a year average over 5 years, $175 million. He would make $14 million this year, $28 million next year, $44 million in 2025. There would be a 3-year out. Somehow he figured out that there would be an $18 million dead cap hit. I don't know how he did that. Then he says 2026, $44 million. Then he said 2027. Think about that. Daniel Jones would be here until 2027, and he would be on the books for $44 million. He said the cap is $54 million in cap space for us this year, 13.5 for Kenny Golladay post or pre-June 1st cut, 10.5 for Leo on a reduction, meaning I guess if you extended him.
No, he was talking about restructuring Leo. So
restructuring,
taking $10 million and putting it into next year into a void, because that's what unless he voids money, right?
Yeah. So doing the Dave Gettleman thing, Roger that. Great job for this by this guy. And then he said $78 million in cap space, $14 million for Danny Dimes, leaving $64 million in cap space for the New York Giants to go out there.
Grow space. What's effective space?
Exactly. To go out there and become the roster that we know and we want. So Tim, and oh, by the way, hold on. Out of that $175 million, only $70 million is guaranteed, which to me, that's like, you're delusional if you think you're on $175 million. You're only taking $70 million guaranteed on that. That's more like $100 million or $120 million guaranteed.
In that example, one of the things, my question was, what are you talking about with the signing bonus? So he said $90 million, or what was it? No, it was $9 million, $45 million signing bonus with the guarantees, right? So when we're talking about these guarantees, you gotta be careful. Is it guaranteed salary? Or are we talking about roster bonuses if they're on the roster at a certain state, and then it kicks in as a guarantee, right? Because sometimes they use that term interchangeably with the guarantees, where there's actual true guaranteed salary, and then you've got roster bonuses that hit if they're on the roster at a certain point, which was the issue with one of the issues with James Bradbury last year.
Yeah, so and I'm going to take my glasses off, so the reflection of what I'm going to read doesn't show. So this is what I keep wanting to say Mutt Guru, like if you're playing Madden, like because I play Madden, Mutt Guru, like I keep wanting to say that for some reason. I don't know why. Cap Guru said you're forgetting you need to account for $25 million in for PS. What is that? What is PS stand for? Practice squad. Okay, practice squad rookies season. You're also you're pushing $10 million for Leo into next year in void years ? So now the void year debt cap goes to $16 million. Then somebody responded and said, "This is just plain wrong. Practice squad players make $200 to $300K per season, so you are talking about maybe $3 to $4 million max. Anyone drafted after the third round is a wash." With bottom of the roster. So rookies who made $5 to $6 million max So that's 8 to 10 million total for those. 15 million in season, little much. Why do I feel by the expression on Tim's face that he thinks that this person has no idea what he's talking about?
First, and this is there again. There needs to be logic, and the logic is that he's saying Daniel Jones is going to take 14 million the first year, which you're going to have to give him a lower number because of the fact that we only have 50 plus. But the problem is this, and this is the issue that people seem to forget. Unless the Giants use either the franchise tag or the transition tag, Daniel Jones is a free agent. If I'm Daniel Jones and I know my worth and I'm this guy that thinks I'm going to be, the next Joe Montana, Steve Young rolled in with Dan Marino.
He's wearing Steve's number.
I'm going to these other teams and saying, hey, listen, you have more cap space. I want to get paid. It's like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley first came up and said he's not going to hold the Giants hostage and he doesn't want Christian McCaffrey money. And then the next day he goes, I want 16 million.
But you know what's funny though, Tim, about that is Rock Nation gambled on that. They lost because the estimate for the tag on the running back went down from 12.3 to like 10 now.
10, yeah, it's 10-1. Right?
Yeah. So
the other thing that hurt him, Guru, right, was it the fluctuation of running back free agents that are hitting the market. Jacobs, Pollard, Kareem Hunt, all of these guys are hitting the market, which is ultimately going to be like, meaning like, why would I pay you 16 million when I could probably get this guy for cheaper? And he would be sitting there. And now in that regard, just for a short time to get off DJ, is that why you think that Saquon reverted Tim or Cat Guru and said, I'm not looking to reset the running back market? Is that why? Because now maybe they realize, hey, we fucked up big time.
I think a player is going to go get what he needs to go get. And any player, years ago, so many years ago, Leonard Williams, when he first came over for the Jets, and he had his king of the almost sack. He had his half a sack or whatever it was that year. He came out and said that his agent said that he wanted Aaron Donald money. And I reported this, and this was the day after Christmas, and everyone thought I was crazy. That no, he didn't say that. He didn't say. And I actually talked to someone that worked in his agency, and they were like, yeah, he wants Aaron Donald money. And then as we get closer and closer to free agent, no, I don't want Aaron Donald money. No, I don't want this. No, I don't want this. But then he goes, but I want to get paid the top highest defensive end. But then he goes, nah, but I want to get paid the top defensive tackle. And then he goes, no, I want to get paid the top defensive end, because he knows the defensive end make more money. And that's why he wanted the designation as a defensive end. As a player, I never encourage a player to not go out and get what they think that they deserve or what someone thinks that they will pay for them. But the problem is, as a team that you are coming from, you cannot hold yourself hostage on a player that is looking for a contract which may be out of the realm for you and maybe not. It doesn't make the Leonard Williams contract never made sense to me. The Kenny G contract never made sense to me. I said this minutes after it happened, they signed, because it just didn't make sense to where the team was and what the direction was and where they were going. So with Saquon Barkley, I think he just decided, he sees that Christian McCaffrey's in the championship game. He's getting his money. He's getting paid. That he feels that he is the best running back on the marketplace right now. Someone said to me today, do you think he is using that as a ploy not to come back to the Giants, that he's outpricing himself to be in New York, that he may say he wants 16, but maybe he takes 13 someplace else? Because there's always gamesmanship. That's like the press conference the other day. I loved it because no one ever lies in a press conference. And when Shane and Dable said, yeah, we want Daniel Jones back, we want this back, no one in the history of fucking sports has ever lied. It's amazing to me. I've never seen this before in my entire life. I've sat in front of.
Are you being sarcastic, Tim?
I sat in a press conference in Miami once, and
I've never lied to a girl. I swear.
Tim was watching that, and in his mind he was like, reflect on what I just said.
It's like the bullshit meter was going off 100%. I was in Miami. They had a press conference, and I loved it because The GM at the time said all the right things, said all the wonderful things, said all these great things about these certain players. And I'm sitting there in the back with the people that worked for travel, and they were getting these guys tickets ready to be moved on to someplace else. And I'm like, you're sitting there saying all this wonderful shit, but we're packing these guys up and we're trading them within 6 hours. But don't worry, we're not lying, because you need to know what my game plan is for not only free agency, but the draft, because I should just give it to you now. So I always tell people, anything you hear, it's coach speak, it's GM speak. It means nothing. It's father. It means nothing whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, I think the truest thing that Shane ever said was that when he said that, during the bye week, that we have spoken to Saquon Barkley's team and we were working on a contract, but nothing came about. And then they asked him about Daniel Jones, and he says, we haven't talked to anyone. We haven't talked to anyone from his agency. If you are really believing in your guy, you're having conversations.
So here's
hold on a second, because I've always been curious about something, right? And Tim, maybe you could give us some insight on this, being that you've been involved with the NFL in the process. Why are players? I understand you want to get the most money, right? Like, I understand that you want to make the most money you possibly can, but it almost feels like these players are cutting off their nose to spite their face, because you take up all this money, you take up all this money, and you know that you can't get other players when you're taking up all this money. Why are players doing that? Like, why are players not figuring out other ways to get their bag without fucking up the team's cap? Like, I've never understood this. It makes no sense to me, because I want to win championships.
You want the truth, though? You want the honest to God truth?
Yeah.
I don't know if some people can handle the truth, Tim, but go right ahead.
Warren Sapp, his last year in Tampa was in 2003. And he was taking up a large portion of the cap space. Now, a lot of Giant fans hate Warren Sapp. I like Warren Sapp because I
think he's a funny dude.
His
wardrobe makes me do a little bit of this.
Yeah,
but great guy.
But great guy, you know what? And personally, he was always nice to me. He was always a great guy. And we were talking once, and I remember this because this was in front of the concierge desk at the hotel, and we were talking about money. And I was thinking about buying a house and something else, and he was talking about refinancing something, and we came up about money. And I jokingly said to him, "Well, if you want to stay here, you're probably gonna have to take less." And now he had already won his championship, and he goes, "I'm not taking less." He goes, why should I take less for my talents if I think this is what I'm worth and someone is willing to pay me this? He's like, I don't care. And at this point in time, he had already won his championship, but he basically said, I don't care. I'm going to get paid because this is my job right now. He said to me, if you worked doing X and you thought you were worth 200,000 and they're only offering you 100,000, but then they come back and they give you the 200 grand, are you going to say no? Are you going to turn them down? No, you're going to take the money because your career is only in the NFL is only 3.5 years. So you need to get as much money as you possibly can, because I'm not trying to be mean, but a lot of these guys aren't rolling out of the league, and going into, being the CEO of a tech company. This is where they're going to make their money for the rest of their lives, a lot of these guys. And that's why you notice that a lot of these guys, 4 or 5 years out of the league, they're broke because of the fact that they never took care of their cash. So I've heard so many people say it before, you need to get the money that you can, because it's not always going to be there. And a lot of times what happens is they think it's going to be, you think it's like we've talked about before, if you're a 5th round draft choice, you think you're going to be making 100 million. No, I'm just saying over the next 10 years, but you're not. You may be out of the league in a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So even if I understand Pest's point that you do have players that take home team discounts, but I like I said, I never begrudge a player for saying, I'm going to get what I'm worth. In my mind, if someone's willing to pay it, let them figure out the fucking cap, because you know what? I'm here to play ball. And just
I just never quite understood, if players really realize how much their greed prevents them from actually being like a champion. And it's crazy for me, right? Because I would personally think in a market like New York City, right? If I win here, I'm a god. So why not take a little less money so I can win here and then be a god? I can be on TV like Michael Strahan. You know what I'm saying? I can have my own show like Eli Manning.
Think of this though. In your current job, in your current role, would you take less for the company to make more? See, you. I mean, they always say the pause. They refer to it as the cesura, which is a dramatic pause.
Here's the $1 million
that sucks,
question,
man. I love my job. I love what I do.
Hey, Rob.
Go ahead, Cap.
Hey, Tim. I wanted to ask you a question. Do you remember that game? I'm pretty sure it was. I'm 99% sure it was Neil O'Donnell. It was like the first game of the season. It was like back in the 90s, first game of the season. He threw like 5 or 6 touchdown passes in one game, and like he earned like a $2 million check, right?
Yeah.
And it was not likely to be earned, because we were talking about the cap stuff, right? Not likely to be earned, so it hit the books next year. I'm pretty sure it was Neil O'Donnell. Wasn't it like when he was with the Jets or something like that? Because the year before he had been injured and only had like 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was with the Jets.
Yeah, and so that was one of the things we were talking about last night. In terms of potentially structuring a deal for DJ with that. I mean, the Niners did that actually a lot of that this year with Jimmy's contract.
But I think most people think that. I mean, or I think Daniel Jones may think, or his team may think that he's above Jimmy G. I mean, you have some people that were saying that he's a top 5 quarterback. I mean, I think he's in the top 25. Maybe at 26. And I know that
we don't listen to those people. We don't listen to those people, Tim, that say he's a top 5 quarterback. Listen, here's the $1 million question: is Daniel Jones, in your honest opinion, press conference aside, everything all aside, is Daniel Jones on this roster in the 2023 season?
If you look at it cap wise, if you are smart, if you are a smart capologist, if you are and you truly look at what the Giants need, you need a center, you need 2 guards, you need at least 2 wide receivers, you may need a running back, you're going to need I like Bellinger, but you may need a little bit more help at the tight end. You are going to need some outside speed on your linebackers. You're going to need a cover linebacker. You're going to need at least 2 middle linebackers. You're going to need at least a CB1. You may need a strong safety as well. And you're going to, you're going to need a punter, because I've never seen a guy that's called the Scottish Hammer who can't do any directional punting, which was kind of an oxymoron. But at this point in time, you have to look at this and say, I think the Giants are going to take a regression next year. I think it's going to be like the 17 Bills, with Tyrod Taylor. They went to the playoffs, lost to Jacksonville. 18, they went 6-10 because they drafted Josh Allen and he played like in 11 games. I think that the ball doesn't always bounce the way you should. And I think Shane is smart. He understands that the offense did not run through Daniel Jones. It ran through Saquon Barkley. When 2 of your comeback drives in the fourth quarter, you only threw 1 pass in 2 games, and in 1 game, you didn't throw any passes in the fourth quarter. I'm not consistently in love with that. People look at Justin Fields in Chicago and call him a bust. He had more touchdown passes. He had a little less in reference to passing yardage, but he had over 1,000 yards rushing, and he had more touchdowns than Daniel Jones, and what you would consider a considerably worse team with the worst weapons around him. But they had similar stats. But for some reason, he's a running quarterback, and Daniel Jones is a messiah for throwing for 3,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. If you are a smart man, you look at this and you say, you know what? There are guys in the draft. There are guys in free agency. I've missed my window. And I've said it before, you're a new general manager, you're a semi-new coach. You want to win with your own guy. You don't want to win with a retread, because if you lose with Daniel Jones in year 2, it's no one's fault but your own. And you can't go back to ownership and say, well, now I got to draft a quarterback in year 3. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, Daniel Jones will not be back on the Giants. And I think more than likely Saquon Barkley is going to be returning, but I can't think if Daniel Jones is going to sit there and say, I'm going to take $14 million that first year, because of the fact that what player would sit there and say, I want you to give me half of the value that I think that I'm worth, or what the market dictates. It doesn't suck for me, but I just don't see it. And I said, don't shoot the messenger, because it's math. I didn't make up math. If you look at it math wise, talent wise, organizational wise, it makes zero sense.
Now,
and the other thing is, it's not only that, it's the cap only goes up 10 to 15% every year. I mean, you're talking $20 million, here and there, $25 million, maybe the year after that, and you're talking about over 100% increase in the cap space that's being taken up by Daniel Jones, right? You're talking over 100% increase in the cap space that Dex is going to take. You're talking over 100% increase in the cap space that Xavier McKinney is going to take. You're talking over 100% increase in the cap space that Andrew Thomas is going to take. You can't continue doing that and think that you're going to be able to, bring a bunch of other people in either. And so building from the middle out, which is where we are right now with a fucked up cap base like we have right now, is like the freaking Bengals trying to retool over and over with Andy Dalton. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like they added weapons for Dalton, and he didn't take that next step, right? So if you believe that DJ is going to take that next step, if that's what Shane and Dable believe, by adding those guys, then you bring in a guy like an AJ Green, relative to that. I'm not saying you bring in AJ Green or D Hop or whatever. I'm just saying you bring in a guy that would fit that role, right? Or whatever the case is. But there's no guarantee that he's going to turn into the next, Patrick Mahomes, right?
Now let me ask. Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
To me, Daniel Jones is like dry white toast. Like, I like him.
No butter?
Toast.
No butter?
Dry white toast, bro.
Dry white toast.
Brother can't get no butter.
Unsalted butter, okay. I mean, I like the kid. I really do. Like, I want to like him. But like, I just get this feeling of like he's gonna be running for like the touchdown to win the Super Bowl, and then the turf monster's gonna get him, and the clock's gonna run out.
Listen, I have been a Daniel Jones detractor.
You were just about to say Daniel Jones. That's right, Daniel Jones,
the detractor. Jones. Okay, I'm at a weird position, right? Frankie, my chat is going just bananas. I can't pay attention to my damn chat. So I don't know how to feel about the prospect of Daniel Jones being the quarterback next year. I don't know how I feel about that, right? I think I'm at a point where if Joe Shane decides to give this man a contract, I'm going to have to rock with it. I don't think I'm going to be happy, but I'm going to have to rock with it because I'm a Giants fan and I got to just support my team. But as I've sat here, right, for this hour and some change, I'm so gracious for y'all to give us this time and to give us this information because I've sat here and I've just listened, right? I've just listened to y'all kind of break this cap shit down because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm gonna have to watch this back. I typically don't watch our shit, but I'm gonna have to watch this specific one back because there's a lot of really good information in it. But it's really made my fucking stomach turn on the thought of Daniel Jones coming back here. Because I'm not thinking about all that extra shit y'all been talking about all night. But now it's in my head, and I'm like, holy shit. Do we really want to spend that much money on Daniel Jones?
It makes you think a little bit differently, right, Pest? I mean, when you step back and you think about it, and here's the thing. I'm in these spaces, Tim, I'm in these spaces, every day. And yes, I was rooting for him. Yeah, because he's wearing big blue. And yes, after the performance against Minnesota and the performance against Indianapolis, and I knew we were going to the playoffs, like the offseason to me is like blocked out. We're in the postseason. I want to win. And I'm rooting for him. Yeah, rah, rah, rah. But what killed me is I don't think if we lost that game to Philly 37-34, I could probably walk out of that and be like, yeah, you know what? This guy, we need to figure out a way to make it work. Like, we need to figure it out. Like, he had us on the cusp of going to the conference championship game. But to get blown out 37-7 by 31 points.
And look kind of lost while you're doing it.
But
Yeah,
that's
like,
kind of a
let's just be real. Let's just be real. And you look fucking lost while you're doing it.
At times, it looked like we didn't even get off the bus. We didn't get off the bus. The team was watching the game in the locker room. There were dummies on the field. Okay.
Yo, I had to watch that game while having the flu. All right. I had the flu this whole weekend.
Wild. Now,
Son of a bitch.
I want to ask two questions to either Tim or Cap. With the money that you're not going to pay Daniel Jones at $30 million, realistically, how many players is that? Meaning, if you were going to go into free agency, you mentioned center, linebacker, maybe a safety, corner, guard, wide receiver.
Wide receivers.
How many players does that equip to that you could add by not paying Daniel Jones?
You could probably get 5 good players with that.
But the problem is, are you going to get a quarterback in free agency?
Well, Tim, now you're jumping the gun here, Tim. Now
that's where there's a fucking problem. Who are we going to sign?
My next question. Just talking about, like, if we're just talking about just replace, like, how many just generic
how many players could you add for that $30 million that you would pay DJ? How many players could you add?
Depends on what you're replacing him with, right? Like, if you're replacing him with street trash, then you're going to get 30.
I mean,
players,
you can replace him with 20 guys. I mean, it really depends.
I mean,
overall players. Like, could we get, if you don't sign DJ, could we get a center, a linebacker, a wide receiver, and a safety and a guard by not paying him $30 million?
Yeah.
If you don't give him $30 million, yeah.
Okay. So now the next part of that question is, if they don't bring back Daniel, are you looking to bring in, say, I don't know, a Mitch Trubisky that might get cut from Pittsburgh? Listen, you know what? Hold on, time out.
John, listen. Fucking mic off, John.
Will tweeted this out. Now. Listen, Will tweeted this out, and I thought Will was drunk or something. But what I'm saying, I'm just throwing out a name because they're familiar with him because he was in Buffalo. Do you go out and sign a cheap quarterback to take over? Do you run it with Tyrod? And are you moving up in the draft this year? Like, is there anybody, Tim, that you're ready to move up for this year to go and grab? Or are you banking, not really banking like that you're purposely tanking, but are you going to ride out and say, I'll move up next year. I'll make the attempt to move up next year and get my guy versus this year. And the reason why I ask that is, for me, the place that I want to move up to is number 6. I want to call Detroit and I'll say, hey, I'll send you Leo, a couple of firsts because they need D-line help, and whatever else you need to go up to 6 to take CJ Stroud at 6. Do you think they go after a quarterback? Do they bring a quarterback in, or are they running it with Tyrod? If they don't bring back Daniel Jones, what would you do or think they would do?
It's weird, though, because in the beginning of the season when I was ranking quarterbacks, I said Goff was probably the only quarterback I wouldn't take over Daniel Jones, starting quarterback. And now Jared Goff has put himself in a trajectory in a team in Detroit that you never thought he would have the type of season that he had. So you would automatically assume they were going to take a quarterback at the beginning of the year. Now you're kind of like, well, maybe they are interested in moving on from that picking and trying to get a ransom. I don't think they're going to take Leo's contract, even though they're so poor defensively. You gave Tyrod third tier starter money for a reason. There was a reason why the Giants did that, and I don't know if they just did not think of the idea of how long Daniel Jones was going to be able to play, what his level was going to be at, and I think we know what Daniel Jones's level is going to be at. As long as everything's perfect, as long as he doesn't have to do too much, as long as he doesn't have to shoulder things, he's fine. But as soon as you put him in a position where he has to be the guy, he folds. And I love it when people always say, well, he doesn't have an offensive line, he doesn't have wide receivers. And Skip Bayless, who I'm not a big fan of, said it best. If all you do is complain about your offensive line and your wide receivers, you don't have a quarterback. Because there have been plenty of quarterbacks in this league who have had terrible talent on either the offensive line and the wide receivers and excelled. If I'm the Giants, I don't think Tyrod Taylor can make it through a full season. I'm not going after someone like Trubisky. I'm going to find hopefully the Giants are in love with someone in this draft. And if they're not, it's fine. Maybe it is going to be next year, but hopefully they see something. And everyone always says, well, we're picking so low. And I always say, you can trade up in the draft. It's okay. It's allowed. Teams are able to do this. We wouldn't have gotten
the Bills did that for Josh Allen.
Exactly. I was going to say Buffalo did it for Josh Allen. We did it for Eli Manning. You can. I am a big Hooker fan, and I'm talking the Hooker from Tennessee. Yep. I'm not talking.
I was going to say because I can appreciate a Hooker or two myself.
But Tim, he's so. I don't want to make it sound like this, but doesn't the age concern you at 26, going to be 27?
He's not a, what, it's interesting. I think he's 25 right now.
He's not Chris Weinke.
He's not, thank you. I was going to say, he's not Chris Weinke. He's not 30 and he's not 39 years old. And I know Chris Weinke wasn't 39, but he is a guy that's coming off an ACL right now. He was having a great season at Tennessee. I actually had him ranked as one of the highest quarterbacks, during that midpoint of the season before he got injured, because if you actually watched him play, I've always said this before, and I've said it, when you go from high school to college, the game speeds up, and then you finally reach a point where it slows down. When you go from college to the pros, hopefully it does the same thing, that the game will be faster, and then then it slows down. It looked like this game really slowed down for Hooker, and he's just so interesting in the pocket, the way he has the ability to move. And I like a guy that's a little bit older, to be honest, because first of all, physically you have already matured, so you already know what his body type is going to be. And a lot of times when you have guys that are a little bit older coming into the league, emotionally they are ready to play. My theory was, before he got hurt, let Tyrod, be the caddy the first 6 weeks, and then slowly work in the quarterback, work in Hooker, and then have him take over, because of the fact that, like I said, I think the Giants are taking a step back next year because of the schedule, and you're not going to get all the bounces. You're not going to get all the penalties, not called and called. It's just not going to happen. It's the law of averages. But my theory is this: if you can do that, you can still maintain your cap space. If you can get a quarterback in the lower half between 15 and 20, you'll be all right for the next 4 to 5 years. If you can, like I said, if you find a guy that you're in love with, because of the fact that, like I said, I think we've seen the ceiling with Daniel Jones, and I think we've seen what he is going to be. If you take a look at his best games, it's against, his two best games are against the 31st ranked Minnesota defense in a dome, and he beat the Colts. And everyone can tell me, well, he carried himself he carried this team and he carried this, but everyone seems to forget about this guy, number 26, who seemed to be pushing them forward and forward and forward through multitudes of these games. And I was at almost every home game. And honestly, I think the Bears game was the biggest eye-opener for some, which should have been the biggest eye-opener for some fans, because the Bears figured out Daniel Jones in the second half. The Daniel Jones' theory was this. This is what Kafka was doing. You play action rollout, you give him the tight end, and if the tight end or the wide receiver is not open, he runs. And he burns.
Yeah, it was all like a high-low read, pretty much.
That's all it was. He burned Chicago repeatedly. And then Chicago figured it out in the second half. The Texans did the same things. And now these aren't world beaters on defense.
Hey, Tim,
And
let me ask you a question, though, about that. From a guy that went from, 2 years of Garrett and Judge, right, where he was basically, they had him with blinders on, right, and basically no very little ability to audible out, to create or do anything like that. With when you're sitting there, you're facing a rush that's getting home with 4 or 5 guys, so you've got 6 or 7 guys defending the pass, and you've got static routes. Is there not you almost have to wait a little bit longer to pass the ball, right? Because you got to wait for the guy to flash open,
right,
before he gets there. Now, how much deprogramming does that take for somebody learning not only a new system, but a system that's as complex as this one?
See, I don't think they deprogrammed him at all. I think if anything, they actually made it a little bit easier for him. To me, the blinders have been on since Shermer. Shermer had a very interesting philosophy with Daniel Jones, which is why he was successful. Again, he reminds me of the old Notre Dame quarterback, Rick Meyer. Rick Meyer had a good season when he came into Seattle. And then, it was a good season by the standards of the 80s. But then the next year, the league figured out he couldn't throw to the left. So they just stacked everything to the right and made him go to the left. What Shermer did with Jones was he cut the field in half and gave him 2 options and told him that if the first, just throw it to the first option unless it's completely covered. Because you sometimes as a quarterback, you just throw to a spot and your guy gets it. And that's how Sherman made him so successful for those 5 games where he had 5 good games. And I find it interesting that 2 regimes after Shermer have limited what Daniel Jones can do. They put him in a box under Garrett, and then they put him in even more of a box with Kafka, because if you complete 16 passes behind the line of scrimmage in one game, they are not allowing you to look deep. They want you to go to the check down. And that's what he did in a lot of these games. So if anything, I actually think they took away more of his ability to pass and made him more of a runner and more of a check down quarterback than they did, not because of the lack of quote unquote talent, because Daniel Jones was still holding on to the ball, the 3rd longest in the league in the pocket for the last 2 seasons. So he's having time in the pocket. And sometimes, the 4-man rush gets to you, but if you hold on to the ball for 3.5 seconds, whatever happens to you, happens to you. So I think if anything, they've actually tried to take more of his creativity away and make him more of a designed runner and a check down passer than they did even with Garrett, because I think a lot of Garrett's game plans were so well thought out, but the problem is there was poor execution. And a lot of that was on the wide receivers and the quarterback.
What round do you think Hendon would fall to? 2nd, 3rd, because of his injury?
I'm thinking 2nd or 3rd.
Hey, Tim, it's interesting that you mentioned that about Garrett, because do you follow the Honest NFL at all?
No.
I
don't watch TV or YouTube. but luckily I'm on YouTube.
He's on Twitter.
Don't follow me. He's on my Twitter. If you don't post shit on my Twitter page, I don't know. I don't know how to make the damn thing work at the time.
Because the guy's awesome. He's a former scout, super detailed, Twitter feed and everything. And he happens to be an Eagles fan. But anyway, his criticism of Garrett was that he felt Garrett was not imaginative, never had any responses for anything. Made very little adjustments. Had very stale game plans, that sort of thing. From his standpoint, that's been the criticism of Garrett as a whole, right?
But the thing is, But I'm going to ask you a question though with Garrett. When you are the offensive coordinator, what philosophy are you running? Whose philosophy are you running as the offensive coordinator? Where is the edict of the direction of the philosophy coming from? The head coach. There's no offensive coordinator. I'm going to tell you this from experience. Unless you are a guy who is like a top 5 offensive coordinator, a guy that's been to the playoffs, been to the Super Bowl, you're running off the edict of the philosophy of your head coach. And the philosophy, I believe, with Joe Judge was, don't let Daniel Jones beat you by turning the ball over. And the easiest way to do that was to limit his chance to make the mistakes that cost him so dearly in his first year of the career. And I believe that's exactly what Kafka did. I mean, if you take a look at Jason Garrett, when he was the offensive coordinator back in Dallas, his offense was steeped in Air Coryell. That's what it was from. And that's what the Giant fans kind of thought, that they were going to get the motion offense, everything going on. But the problem was, you have a turnover prone quarterback who's going to keep your defense on the field. The best thing to do is limit his options to make the mistake, which is why, in my mind, Daniel Jones's interceptions and fumbles have gone down, because of the fact that they're not putting him in the position to make the mistake. In the Eagle game, when he had to make the play, when he had to avoid the rush, when he had to improvise, he either got sacked, he fumbled, or he threw an interception.
Well, I mean, the pick in the Eagles game, he threw right over the blitzing nickel back, and Slayton drifted right to the outside instead of coming in and bodying up Bradbury, which is where the ball was being thrown to, right? Because he was supposed to be coming in and buttoning in on that, because that would be the hot route, right? Because you're going to
the funny thing is, and this is why I like things like Pro Football Focus. We don't know that. Yeah. Unless Slayton or the coach or someone came out and said, yes, this is the route. We don't even know.
Yeah.
We have no idea what play was run. We don't know who they even know.
100%. I'm just saying, because you saw Slayton cut in, right? And you saw the ball go in there, you would assume that's where the hot route was, right? That's where the read was.
Now with Saquon, Tim, do you think that Saquon is a contract or a tag situation?
He figured he.
I was actually. I was gonna actually say, because I don't want to continue longer than what we asked, right? But there is so much more. There is so much more that I want to talk to you two about. So here's a question. Can we do a part 2 to this next week? Can we do a part 2 to this next Wednesday?
I'm game.
Are
you good, Tim, with that?
Don't you remember? I'm leaving. I'm having a online Big Blue Sports is going away tomorrow. Tomorrow's the very last live stream.
Wait, what? Huh? What? No, you're not.
Yeah, the channel is going dark after Thursday's live stream, and is now being replaced with the New York Giants Straight Talk, which is going to be basically one episode a week for about 45 minutes to an hour long. Only because of the fact that I have another podcast which is coming out, which is Return to Gotham New York Sports Talk, which is going to be more of a daily podcast and daily YouTube channel as well. So I'm not really going to want to after tomorrow.
Damn! I didn't realize all these things was getting ready to happen all at once. All right,
Tim. Strategically, let me ask you this. My view on the DJ Saquon situation with the contracts and who gets tagged or what, right? Obviously, you can't tag one or the other one beforehand, because you don't want to give your hand up in terms of the negotiation, right, with the other one, right? Because if you tag Saquon, that means you're either letting DJ go, or you're trying to get a deal done with him, and then his agents will pretty much know that, right, one way or the other. If you tag DJ, then the same thing with Rock Nation, right, vis-a-vis Saquon. Question is, let's say they do come to a contract agreement with Saquon. Do you then tag DJ and say, hey, listen, let's say they don't want him back, but they tag him and they say, all right, go find yourself a contract, and then we'll trade you, right? Or do you say, hey, just go, we'll take the comp pick, whatever, right?
Well, as you know, because
obviously you're going to tie up cap space, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you tag Jones, that's a $32 million cap hold.
Right.
He can take his time in finding teams. He's going
to take his time and find a deal, but that's $32 million that we have a hold on immediately. My theory is, if I'm the Giants, I'm tagging Barkley, because it's a little over 10 million. He already made 8. So really take a look at and reference replacing his number in reference to the cap $1.1 million difference. And I know he probably, the difficult thing is a lot of times you tag a player, they're not happy because of the fact that you are limiting them. And I mean, you take a look at, Bell with the Steelers, with when everything happened with him, and it's just tagging players just never works out well for any player. You got Yannick Ngakoue, you got all these other players that it just doesn't work. But with Barkley, I feel that I'm the Giants, and I think there's a window. And I think there's a window. And like I said, we don't know what the Giants organization is thinking. We don't know what their talent assessment is. But if they think there's a window to make the playoffs again, you tag Barkley. And then maybe you try to work out a lower level deal for Jones, but I don't think he would take it. But if you tag Barkley, it's going to free up money for you to sign the 5 free agents that we've talked about and potentially draft a quarterback or find a mid-level quarterback to kind of play a rotational basis with Tyrod Taylor and kind of go from there. If you think your defense is strong enough, if Wink stays, everyone talks about Kafka leaving. My thing is I'm more concerned about Wink leaving because what
if Wink leaves? Yep.
Could have been the head coach of the Giants.
Yeah, but Kafka's been the only one that's gotten a second interview, right? I think Wink hasn't gotten one. No, it's been Kafka.
I think
Houston.
Wink had
an interview. He had one interview.
Yeah, Wink had one interview, but Kafka had a couple of interviews, but he had 2 interviews with the Houston Texans. They interviewed him and then they brought him in for a second.
It's a very Texan thing to do to hire a head coach.
And here's the thing, like with Danny Thomas, I appreciate you coming in and and showing some support with the channel. But I'm not directly like coming at you. I'm just addressing your statement. It's statements like that right there. It's like, I honestly don't see any quarter QBs that can be better than Daniel Jones that we can get. That's my only issue. So what we're doing is when you make a statement like that, you're judging what you've seen versus what you haven't seen. And you're automatically assuming that a CJ Stroud or a Hooker or an Anthony Richardson or whomever would not be able to come in. It's not like Daniel Jones threw for 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and had 600 yards on the ground.
Whole boy was serviceable.
He threw for 3,200 yards. He threw for 15 touchdown passes. A competent quarterback. I mean, just any competent. I'll be honest. And Danny Thomas, let me ask you this: do you think that Tyrod Taylor could not throw for more than 15 touchdown passes? I think he could. You're talking about a 12-year vet that's been in this league. I think it's more than possible that he could throw for more than 15 touchdown passes. The problem
we're not going to do
the reason I think he wouldn't is because he played 2 games and then he'd be on the shelf.
Well, yeah, but
I don't think that.
I'm saying if he stayed healthy, if Tyrod stayed healthy. But here's the thing: the problem that we have. The problem that we have.
Jacoby Brissett. Everyone loves Jacoby Brissett.
But I love Jacoby Brissett.
I like Jacoby.
I mean, honestly, like if you're gonna let DJ go, right? If you're gonna let DJ go, the options are the concept of letting DJ go is I'm okay with him going. It doesn't fucking matter if I win 5 games, 6 games, or whatever. It doesn't. That's immaterial. I'm building my team the way I want to build it, right? And at the end of the day, John Mara and Joe Shane have got to be on the same page. And Brian Dable has got to be on the same page with them. The 3 of them have to be on the same page and in line. And if they are, then it doesn't matter if it's Daniel Jones or whoever. They could bring Daniel Jones back, and for all we know, it could be an Alex Smith situation.
But see,
right?
this is what got Giants in trouble. I mean, if you go back to George Young, when George Young came in and took over for the Giants, and Wellington Mara, the story is, and a lot of people tell the story, and a lot of people tell the story wrong because it's actually in his book. The league did not make Pete Rozelle did not make the Giants hire. He did not make him hire George Young. What happened was Wellington Mara went to Rozelle and said, "Who's a good young guy that could come in and, lead my franchise. Because Mara understood, Wellington that it was time to distance himself. And this was after the miracle of the Meadowlands. And I was there for that, believe it or not. That's how old I am. He decided that it was time to distance himself from the football portion of the game because he does not know it. And which is why he went and got someone young. And if you ever looked at George Young back in the 70s, even as a young guy, he didn't look like a young guy. But he wanted someone that knew the draft. He wanted someone that knew scout, that knew how to build the team. And he said, you know what? I'm going to turn this now over to George. And I think the biggest issue with the team right now was John Mara fell so much in love with Eli Manning that he didn't let him go when he should have let him go. That and I get worried that he's going to hold on to Daniel Jones because
Tim, I think
of Eli Manning. And
I think it takes owners a period of time to learn how to become an owner in the NFL. You know
John Maра's been an owner for a long time.
No. What I mean is it takes them time to sort of realize, like, I've got to let go of my baby and I've got to be able to give it to somebody else. Right?
I would say that, but he did that with Ernie Accorsi, and he did that a lot with Jerry Reese.
Did he really turn the reins over, or was he?
If he didn't, if you tell the story with Ernie Accorsi when he was back in Baltimore, when he had the opportunity to draft, he was a first year GM, and he had the opportunity to draft John Elway, and Elway said, "I'm not going to Baltimore," so the ownership made him trade the pick away to Denver. Now, he did get some good guys, but Ernie Accorsi said from that day, when I see my quarterback and I know it's my quarterback, I'm going to move heaven and earth to go get him. So in 2004, when it was time he saw his quarterback, he saw his man, he saw his Eli Manning, he gave up a boatload of assets to get that quarterback.
But I think that was part and parcel because Ernie was his dad's guy, right? Like Ernie came from his dad's lineage, right? And I think there was a certain level of trust there, right? And I think with what happened towards the end, at least from the outside looking in, right, is you see a guy that was kind of like, it seems like he was kind of handsy with the team, so to speak, probably from the behind the scenes, but not overtly so, not kind of like Jerry Jones and that sort of thing. Like Jerry won early, right, and then decided that he wanted to shop for the groceries. The Glazers won early, right, and it took them a while to kind of figure out how to get to where they are. The Ravens ownership, kind of similar stories, right? So
but not to stop you, but if you can't use Jerry Jones as an example because of the fact that he bought the Cowboys, they were losers, and he kind of let hands off. But John Mara has been around.
They're going back to being losers. They've been losers
since he was a baby.
Right.
And he was groomed to be put into this, to be put into ownership. So he should know by now.
It takes time
to
learn how to lead.
It's time to let go, because what he has done and what his son has done and what his other Mara have done has wrecked this franchise.
Okay, so I have one last question. All right, I have one last question. I'm very, very interested in this question. If there was, from the pool of free agents that we have now, right? Who is a wide receiver that you'd be working your ass off to get on this team? Because that's one of the things that we absolutely need. So how do we what direction do y'all think we should go to not put us back in this Kenny Galladay situation?
I would say the Patriots, you look at the Patriots model, right? You look at what they did, right? And you look at what they're the only ones that have had sustained success from 2006 until now, right? And minus, the last couple of years because not having Brady, right? Of all the teams that have the highest winning percentage over the last 10 or so years, only the Philadelphia Eagles have had a large amount of turnover at quarterback. Okay, so the number one thing you have to do is you have to have stability at quarterback. But to talk about the other teams, right? They've all tried to have a quarterback making full boat and a receiver making full boat. And guess what? You cannot, you just don't have enough money left to sign other people, right? because then you want to pay your edge full vote. You want to pay this guy full vote. So we end up back where we started, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find guys that are solid twos, right? Solid twos, 2 to 3 guys like that in the right system with great coaching that are smart become mid ones, that become mid, these occasional Pro Bowlers, these guys like a Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, that sort of thing. Those guys. Look at the Patriots. They got Randy Moss. They didn't win a Super Bowl, right? You're spreading out, your ability to continue to diversify your offense. They have running back by committee. Why? They have 3 running backs that do 3 different things, right? You can change your game plan, adapt your game plan within a game. Hey, listen, I'm trying to run the ball. Guess what? It's not working. I'll start throwing. I'm going to get James White involved, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whatever it is, you've got flexibility now because you've got 3 different guys that can move the chains regularly. We had Earth, Wind, and Fire. It was the same thing. We had 3 great receivers at the time when they won the second Super Bowl in 2012. They weren't stellar, top flight receivers, right? Nix was probably arguably a true one, right? But Manningham wasn't, right? I mean,
Yeah, okay.
You see, so get 3 or 4 guys that are sort of in that mid group, right? That are solid guys that get open. You have 2 guys like that. You have to pay attention to them, no matter what you do.
I think Hodgins could be one of those types of players. One guy that keeps coming up by the Giants fan base, and Tim, I'd like to get your perspective on it. And we talked a little bit about it today. T. Higgins is a guy that keeps coming up with the Giants on that, and that they should go and get him, this, that, and the third. And some people say it doesn't make sense for the Bengals because they're in a championship window to give away weapons. And when I looked, Jamar Chase was down for 4 or 5 weeks this year, and they went 4-1 without Jamar Chase. And I look at that as, if you're afraid to get rid of a wide receiver, then you don't believe in your quarterback to be able to lead you on the field. So for me, it's, if Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback right now, you could go ahead and draft a wide receiver in the 2nd or 3rd round and plug him in, and Joe Burrow is going to make that guy look like a star, just like T. Higgins is. And right now, you could probably maybe get a 1st-round pick for T. Higgins at this point. Why wouldn't the Bengals want to move on now and get that pick when maybe he gets hurt next year and they get a 2nd, when they got to pay Jamar in like 2 or 3 years? They're going to have to pay him. But Joe is going to need to get a new contract in a couple of years, and they can use, now you're going to have 2 first-round picks. Maybe they win a Super Bowl this year, maybe, if they make it. And now you get 2 first-round picks going into maybe this draft or next draft that you can move up and get another piece that you need, a number 1 corner, maybe another wide receiver. Maybe you move back and acquire more picks because somebody wants to move up. Do you agree with something like that, where it would work out for both, just using T. Higgins as an example, where it would work out for the Bengals to get top compensation for a guy that for them right now is not a number 1 guy, but maybe for us, let's just say, would potentially be a number 1 wide receiver that we'd have, but you can balance that out. Like, does that seem logical? But you have to pay him. But if you get rid of Jones, you can afford to pay him, and now he could help out a rookie quarterback like a Hooker or somebody that's coming in, or a veteran guy that you have on a low deal.
I like perspective because you're thinking of it from both sides. What Cincinnati could get out of it, because most of the times when people propose a trade, Giants are fleecing the people, exponentially. But
yeah,
if I'm Cincinnati, I'm not getting rid of Higgins, because I have, to your point, I don't know what Jamar Chase is going to happen. I don't know. He's missed time. He's missed time. I'm in a window right now with a good young quarterback. I have an opportunity, not knowing what they're going to do this year, but I have an opportunity to be good again next year by keeping the core. And some ways it would make, yes, it makes sense for the Giants, but it also makes sense for more than an insurance policy to keep Higgins. Now, Higgins was a second round pick, so he doesn't have a 5th-year option. So this is in 2023 is his last year, unless, of course, they re-sign him. But then the idea is, if I'm Cincinnati, how much faith do I have that Jamar Chase is going to stay healthy for 17 games? And because I'm going to need somebody for Burrows to throw to, because it's going to be this thing that, yeah, like I said, Chase is all world when he's on, but he needs to be on the field. But I have almost I have a 1A with Chase and potentially a 1B with Higgins, and I'm going to want more than a 1st-round pick because I think the value is there, and contractually he's only making like $9 million this year. I think his cap number is $9 million, and it's kind of like Orlando Brown Jr., the tackle from the Baltimore Ravens 2 years ago. He wanted to be, he was a right tackle. Then their left tackle got hurt and he came in. He wanted to get paid a left tackle. I thought the Giants should trade him because he was only making $600,000 and he would fit under the cap and we could put him on the other side of Andrew Thomas. But what did they do in Baltimore? They held on to him because they held on to him with the hopes that they have a right tackle and a left tackle. And now it didn't work out. But I think a lot of times, for a perspective of Cincinnati, I'm not moving on from a guy unless it's a big payday for me. And I'm talking, you got to give me, maybe if you give me a 1, a 3, and a 5, then I'm picking up the phone.
And it's not only that, they're giving up T. Higgins at a $3.9 million cap hit, right?
Yeah.
They're, at a $3.9 million cap hit, and that is a huge loss because they've got a guy on a cheap contract. So for them, it makes no sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, going back to the discussion that we were having about how many times do you have contract quarterback making full boat and receiver making full boat and them actually winning Super Bowl? Hasn't happened since 06, okay? You've got Burrow, who's got 2 more years basically on his rookie deal, right? Potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can now sign, let's say, they can get the deal done with T. Higgins if they want to keep him, right? They've got Burrow for another 2 years. They extend Burrow in what would be 3 years from now. So now Higgins is in his 3rd year. They can potentially front load some of that money so that when they get to Burrow, they've got Burrow's deal. They can potentially trade Higgins at that point, right? Depending on how they structure it. If they structure it intelligently, they're able to trade him and move him, right?
Yeah.
Make it appealing for the new team. And, if they want to sign Chase, they sign Chase. The question is does Higgins make Chase or does Chase make Higgins? Or do they both make each other, right? Because you could very well end up with, and I bring this up to people all the time, you could end up with David Boston. You could end up with
I remember David Boston from Arizona. I remember him.
When he got Peerless Price. Oh my God.
Oh my God. I remember Peerless Price from Buffalo.
These guys that were supposedly these amazing receivers, right? Now, Peerless at least had a little bit more of a history than David Boston did. David Boston had that one season he popped and then he just fell off the face of the earth, right? But, the thing is does he really translate across the board? Now, if you do that trade as a Giants, again, you're now having to pay T next year. You now have to have you're now saying I'm going for a rookie quarterback because you're not, that's
you got to offset it somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Listen, this was great. I hope that you guys in the chat, listening on Twitch and YouTube, really, really enjoyed it because I felt that this was needed because, one, we're in the off season. There's a lot of people like to call us Twitter GMs that are out there that are trying to manipulate it. But it just goes to show you, and these guys are very, very knowledgeable. Tim's been in the league. He knows it. He's familiar with it. He's worked with it before. Cap Guru is very, very knowledgeable about the cap and everything. It's more than just saying, hey, it's a $90 million deal, $60 million guaranteed. There's bonuses. There's all of these other things that are factored in that affect your cap that even myself included when I've done it. And that's why I asked that question today that we are not aware of. So we need to take those things into consideration. So I hope that the questions and the things that we talked about here tonight opened up and informed people in some way. And again, if you want DJ to be back, you are not wrong for feeling that way. This was not a show to convince you to let DJ go, but this was a show to ask those questions, to get information, so that when you were determining what you want to do as a fan, what you think is best for the Giants to do, you now have that knowledge to know how it's going to affect your team. So when you do this and you don't see results, this is why. If you want to see results, this is what you need to do, right? So follow these guys. As Tim said, he's going to have a new podcast that's going to be coming out, a daily podcast. Make sure that you're following him and check him out.
Hell yeah.
On Twitter for when he posted that. Cap Guru jumped in for the first time in my space last night. You're more than welcome. Please come in.
Yes, we need you to come back. Okay, Tim coming back at some point. God damn it, I don't care what he's saying.
For us, you better make a fucking exception. Drink some coffee, a Red Bull, and energize yourself, and come back on here. And likewise, we'd love to. I don't know what podcast you're doing, but if you have people or guests on your show, would love to do it for you and return the favor for you coming on with us. But again, I hope that you guys loved it. Follow everybody, support everybody. And look, at the end of the day, we love the Giants. We want the Giants to do well. We want DJ to succeed, whether it's here or somewhere else. Every player. So
just want to win some.
Just because I don't want you, just because I don't want to pay, just because I don't want to pay you, doesn't mean I don't like you. Okay, just because I don't want to pay you. So I just want to win football. So
all right,
go ahead, Pest. You close us out, man.
Yeah, so listen, again, shout out to Tim Online Big Blue. Okay, he's an OG. He's one of the goats of this community. Appreciate you, Cap Guru. This is the first time that I've interacted with you, and man, I'm so glad that I was able to just listen today and soak up some knowledge, because I really don't know a lot about the Caps. So thank you so much for being here. Listen, y'all. We are going to try to have conversations like this more often throughout this off season. And it's here's the deal. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. That's why I bring people here that know what they're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. So I can admit that. And some of us out there need to learn how to admit that. Okay. You don't have to have all the answers, but you just need to know what the questions are and who to ask those questions to. Hope y'all learned something. We appreciate all y'all for hanging out with us. Damn, we went 2 fucking hours. That's crazy. I appreciate all y'all.
That's our longest show.
This is our longest show right here. This is our longest show we've ever done, man. So thank you, gentlemen. And for the Cap Guru, Tim with all that big blue. I had to try. I had to try it. I'm not.
We had to make it a little swag. We had to make it
Tim with all that big blue coming to you live. And for Rob, I am your boy Pest the Analyst. Okay, thank y'all so very much. We love you very much, and y'all all have a good rest of your damn day.
Thank you.